The room fell silent. Meghan Markle's eyes darted across the screen, frozen on a moment that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The words on the broadcast seemed to hang in the air, heavy and undeniable. Archie is not her son. Just like that, a carefully constructed world began to fracture, and the calm, composed image she had meticulously presented to the public seemed to crumble before her very eyes. How could this be happening? How could something so intimate, so deeply personal, be exposed on live television by none other than Tom Bower, a man known for pulling back the curtain on the royals in ways no one else dared? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The question that now consumed Meghan was simple yet terrifying. If Archie wasn't her son, then what had she been hiding? What truths were out there, waiting to be discovered, whispered in corridors of power, in palace halls, in corners where cameras never went? And more importantly, what would Harry do when he found out? For the millions watching across the globe, it was just another shocking headline. A scandal, a royal secret, a twist worthy of tabloid pages. But for Meghan, this was a moment of reckoning. Every carefully curated image, every well-timed interview, every story of triumph over adversity suddenly felt vulnerable, exposed, and fragile. Her life, once a mix of glamour and strategic storytelling, was now on the edge of imploding, and the world could watch it happen in real time. Tom Bower didn't just reveal facts, he shattered assumptions. For decades, the royals had been a world apart, protected by tradition, protocol, and the quiet complicity of the press. But Bower had spent years peeling back layers, uncovering details others feared to touch, and this revelation about Archie was his most explosive yet. He didn't just hint at scandal. He delivered a claim so shocking that even seasoned royal observers found themselves reeling. Imagine, for a moment, the weight of a secret this immense. Meghan, a woman who had already endured relentless scrutiny, was now confronting a personal revelation broadcast to millions. Her pulse raced. Her thoughts spun. How could a claim like this gain traction? How could the world reconcile the image of a devoted mother with a revelation that challenged the very foundation of that identity? And then there was Harry. For him, the news was like a punch to the gut. The protective instincts that had driven him for years, to shield his family, to navigate the treacherous waters of public life, now collided with a harsh reality. Could he defend Meghan? Could he protect Archie? Or was this a chasm too wide to bridge, a truth too volatile to contain? But before we dive deeper into the chaos that followed, it's worth pausing to consider why this story matters now. Royalty, after all, isn't just about crown and ceremony. It's about legacy, power, and perception. Every revelation sends ripples through society, prompting debates, outrage, and fascination. And when the claims are this personal, when they strike at the heart of identity and family, the stakes aren't just public, they're intensely private. Meghan's panic was compounded by the timing. The revelation didn't arrive in a vacuum. It came at a moment when public interest in the Sussexes had already reached fever pitch. Interviews, tell-all books, social media speculation, the ecosystem was primed for controversy. And now, with Bower's explosive claim, the tension reached a boiling point. Fans, critics, and neutral observers alike felt the pull of a story that promised secrets, betrayal, and emotional upheaval. As Meghan grappled with the implications, the media machine roared to life. Headlines blared across the internet. Shocking revelation about Archie. Meghan faces explosive allegation. Bower drops bombshell live. Social media erupted with speculation. Could this possibly be true? How would Harry respond? Was the royal family about to fracture under the weight of yet another scandal? Yet amidst the frenzy, one detail stood out: the personal stakes. For Meghan, this was not merely about public perception. It was about identity, about motherhood, about the fragile trust she had built with Harry, Archie, and the world. To have that trust questioned, publicly, mercilessly, and in a way that could never be undone, was a blow that cut deeper than any headline. It was an existential moment, a point at which her life, carefully constructed and meticulously managed, seemed to teeter on the brink. The suspense was further amplified by Bower's reputation. Known for decades as a relentless investigator, he didn't make claims lightly. His history of uncovering royal secrets meant that every word carried weight, every assertion sparked debate. When he spoke, the world listened. And now, with Archie at the center of his investigation, the stakes were higher than ever. And yet, even as the global audience reacted with shock, a smaller, more intimate drama unfolded behind closed doors. Meghan's team scrambled. Advisors whispered urgently. Legal experts assessed potential fallout. Every move was calculated, every statement considered. But in moments of panic, calculation can falter, and for Meghan, the fear of exposure, the terror of what this revelation could mean, was overwhelming. What did Archie's true identity mean for the future? Could it be hidden? Could it be explained away? Or was this a truth that would forever alter the narrative of Meghan, Harry, and their family? These questions didn't just float in the air. They weighed heavily on every interaction, every decision, every glance. For viewers, the intrigue was irresistible. There was something magnetic about the collision of celebrity, royalty, and scandal. And here, the story promised not just gossip, but a narrative of betrayal, revelation, and emotional upheaval. It wasn't merely a claim about parentage. It was a story about trust, about power, and about the lengths people go to protect their secrets. But even as speculation soared, one fact became clear. The consequences would ripple far beyond the immediate family. Royal observers began to anticipate fallout, both personal and political. How would the public respond? How would the media frame the narrative? And most importantly, how would Meghan herself navigate a revelation that challenged her sense of self, her motherhood, and her carefully cultivated image? And yet, despite the chaos, there remained a question that hung over everything. What really happened? Was this claim the result of careful investigation or a sensationalized interpretation designed to provoke outrage? Could there be more layers, more secrets waiting to be uncovered? The answers, for now, remained elusive, tantalizing, and deeply compelling. As the introduction closes, the stage is set. Meghan's panic is palpable, the public's curiosity is piqued, and Tom Bower's claim looms large, a shadow over every headline, every conversation, every thought. And just when it seems the tension cannot escalate further, there is a whisper of a hint that the story is only beginning, that the revelations ahead will challenge everything we think we know about the Sussexes. The moment the words hit, Meghan's entire world seemed to tilt. Her gaze locked on the screen, wide-eyed and unblinking. The broadcast rolled on, the calm, authoritative voice of Tom Bower narrating what would become the most explosive claim of the year. Archie is not her son, he said, matter-of-factly, almost clinical in tone. But for Meghan, the impact was anything but clinical. Her carefully controlled exterior crumbled in an instant. Panic surged through her veins, her mind racing faster than her pulse. How could this be happening? How could such a private truth, if it even was a truth, be broadcast to the entire world, unfiltered and irreversible? The camera panned across the lavish room she occupied in Los Angeles, but the grandeur of the setting did nothing to calm the storm inside her. The walls, adorned with elegant portraits and soft lighting, seemed suddenly oppressive, closing in as if echoing the scrutiny she now faced. Every whisper of movement, every faint echo in the hallway seemed magnified, a reminder that privacy, that sacred, protective barrier, had been shattered. She had prepared herself for the media glare before, for public curiosity, for the relentless criticism that seemed an inseparable part of life within, or just adjacent to, the royal family. But nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing had prepared her for the way a claim so deeply personal could cut through the veneer of composure she had so meticulously maintained. This wasn't just gossip or a misunderstood quote. This was a direct, seemingly authoritative statement questioning the very foundation of her identity as a mother. Across the globe, millions were witnessing the same moment, each viewer interpreting it through their own lens of curiosity, speculation, and emotion. Social media erupted almost instantly. Tweets, posts, and comments cascaded like a tidal wave, each one amplifying the frenzy. Headlines blared accusations and rhetorical questions. Meghan faces explosive allegation. Archie's parentage questioned. The royal bombshell. Bower drops shocking claim live. The world outside her doors reacted with the kind of intensity reserved for monumental news. But inside, Meghan felt the weight of it all pressed down, a suffocating mixture of fear, disbelief, and urgency. The first instinct was denial, disbelief so potent it made her blink repeatedly, as if sheer willpower could erase the words on the screen. Surely, there had been a mistake. Perhaps the claim was misinterpreted, taken out of context, exaggerated by the media machinery that thrived on sensationalism. Yet the voice was clear, measured, and unyielding. Tom Bauer did not exaggerate lightly. He did not make claims that could be so easily dismissed. His reputation as a relentless royal investigator lent a frightening credibility to every syllable. In the seconds that followed, Meghan's mind raced with practical questions. Who had leaked the information? Who knew? And who would use it? The thought of Harry learning about this, not from her, but from the world, made her chest tighten. How could she frame it? How could she protect her family from the fallout that seemed inevitable? Every scenario was worse than the last. Panic deepened, transforming into a physical sensation. Her hands trembled slightly, her stomach churned, and a cold sweat spread across her back. But the fear wasn't only for herself. It was for Archie. How could a child navigate the complexities of a revelation that called his very identity into question? She thought of his innocent smile, the light in his eyes, and the image of him playing in their garden. The thought of him being dragged, even indirectly, into a storm of public scrutiny made her heart pound like a drum in a silent room. The maternal instinct, the urge to protect, collided violently with the reality that control had already slipped through her fingers. Every phone in her house seemed to ring simultaneously, notifications flooding in, calls from advisors, lawyers, friends. The urgency was suffocating. Meghan attempted to focus, to process the next steps, but clarity was elusive. It was as if her mind were running 1,000 simultaneous tracks, each one leading to a potential disaster. She could feel the stakes in every fiber of her being, her image, her career, her relationship with Harry, and, above all, her connection to Archie. Outside, the world interpreted the story in 1,000 ways. Some saw scandal, some saw confirmation of long-held suspicions, others simply watched, transfixed by the drama unfolding on their screens. Yet no one could fully grasp what it felt like to live inside the moment, to have the words directed at you personally, while billions bear witness. The surreal quality of it all, the collision of private pain and public spectacle, created a pressure cooker that made even routine decisions feel monumental. In the hours that followed, Meghan moved through a haze of strategizing and emotional processing. Calls to legal teams were made, and advisors weighed in with tactical advice, statements to prepare, potential leaks to anticipate, ways to frame the narrative. Every step was calculated, yet every decision was haunted by the uncertainty of truth. How much could be refuted? How much would stick? And how would Harry react when he inevitably encountered the story, either in private or public channels? Amid the chaos, Meghan's own inner circle offered both support and added tension. Advisors whispered cautiously, weighing the risks of public statements versus silence. Friends offered reassurance. Yet each conversation carried the subtle undertone of urgency, a reminder that the storm was growing larger by the minute. Even the staff tasked with managing day-to-day affairs seemed unsettled, their demeanor reflecting the gravity of the moment in ways Meghan could not ignore. The global audience, meanwhile, remained oblivious to these private struggles. To them, the story was digestible, entertaining, even sensational. The spectacle of a royal controversy delivered by a respected investigative author had all the ingredients for viral engagement: power, secrecy, identity, and betrayal. Yet beneath the surface, the human element, the fear, panic, and vulnerability, was far more profound. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a personal earthquake, shaking the very foundation of family life and maternal identity. The juxtaposition of public reaction and private terror created a surreal dissonance. Meghan watched clips of commentators debating her, analyzing her facial expressions, speculating on motive and intent. Each remark felt like a tiny fissure in an already cracking facade. The reality was impossible to reconcile. Her private panic and the public curiosity existed in parallel universes, intersecting only in the impossible arena of media exposure. Yet even as the panic swelled, there remained a thread of determination. Meghan had faced challenges before, had weathered storms of scrutiny, and had, time and again, demonstrated a capacity for resilience. But this was different. The claim struck at the core of identity, of trust, of family bonds that were meant to be unshakable. It was one thing to defend oneself against rumors or misinterpretations. It was another entirely to confront a statement that questioned the very essence of one's role as a mother. As the evening wore on, Meghan's thoughts became increasingly fragmented, a whirlwind of strategy, fear, and anticipation. She imagined every possible scenario: media interviews gone wrong, social media spirals, public confrontations, and the eventual fallout within the royal family. Each scenario carried a heavy emotional toll, and yet none offered a clear path forward. Panic and pragmatism wrestled within her, creating an internal tension that made every breath feel deliberate and every decision fraught with consequence. And then, just when it seemed the moment could not intensify further, a notification arrived that sent a new wave of anxiety crashing over her. A clip from the live broadcast had been shared by a major news outlet, reaching millions of additional viewers. The claim was now irreversible. It was no longer contained to a single broadcast or a niche audience. The revelation had entered the global consciousness. Every press outlet, every social media feed, every conversation about the royals now carried this incendiary claim. For Meghan, the realization was a cold, heavy truth. The panic was not merely a momentary spike of fear. It was the beginning of a sustained, relentless scrutiny that would challenge her every move, every statement, every relationship. The personal had become inescapably public, and the public had become an unforgiving judge. Every heartbeat echoed the same question. How could she recover, reconcile, and respond to a world that now questioned the very essence of her identity as a mother? And in the quiet moments, when the cameras weren't rolling and the world wasn't watching, Meghan allowed herself a fleeting glimpse of raw emotion, fear, heartbreak, and the lonely understanding that some truths, once revealed, could never be contained. The story had begun in the glare of public fascination, but its consequences would reverberate in the private chambers of her life, shaping relationships, decisions, and emotional landscapes in ways she could barely anticipate. But as she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, another wave of panic hit, one that made her realize the storm was far from over. The media frenzy, the scrutiny from the public, the anticipation of Harry's reaction, none of it had peaked. And lurking just beyond the horizon was a revelation even more personal, even more profound, waiting to surface. A secret that would challenge not only her understanding of Archie, but the very narrative she had constructed around her family, her life, and her identity.